That's a really good question to ask me, what are some of the challenges to working with marginalized populations? And I want to flip that. I think we need to flip the script. I want you to ask me instead, what are some of the challenges of working with a system that was not created to benefit all communities? Because my experience of working with marginalized communities is that they're beautiful, complex, full, and really they have been the communities that have taught me the most about ending violence in our communities. At the end of the day, it's those communities that have the answers. I think we just don't do a good job of listening, and we don't do a good job of following. Oftentimes, when we think about survivors, we generally use the word survivor. And in my work, I've been thinking a lot about challenging people, about thinking about all survivors. Why do I say that as it relates to marginalized communities? Because in my community, there's many, many, many different survivors. And if we don't expand that definition, we have to be careful because we often only think about young, straight, white, middle class, Christian survivors.
I think that a SART, the development of a SART needs to really center the most marginalized people in the community. If you can address and conquer, right, the needs and the concerns of the most marginalized communities, I think you'll go a long way to addressing the needs in the community as a whole. So it's really about centering those marginalized communities and saying, let's start with the folks that are most at risk and least likely to call for assistance in the aftermath of a sexual assault. Don't wait and do that as an extra piece. Actually make that part of the central focus of a SART. And one way that you might be able to do that is by identifying particular leaders in the community who may be able to put you in touch with, for example, in a tribal community, somebody who is identified as a spiritual healer or spiritual leader. If you don't know who those folks are, again, give yourself the time to develop those relationships. Don't expect that one phone call will sort of solve the problem. It might take extended and repeated outreach in order to bring those folks into the community, bring them into the SART fold, as it were, and begin work to do that outreach.
I think that SARTs need to unlearn a lot of behaviors, right? Because if we're talking about systems, and I use the word systems a lot, but systems are made up of people. And people have been trained and have been taught in a lot of ways that are just harmful to other folks, right? Because we keep saying marginalized communities and underserved communities. In actuality, these are people, these are humans who have a lot of trauma on this land, So when we're talking about like how we can create space for non-traditional folks to come to the table, we're talking about people like actually doing the work and unlearning some of the harmful practices, because there are a lot of folks who can contribute greatly to the work that we're doing.